Welcome back to Inside the Kentucky Derby. We're talking Derby, and we're going to talk the recap today of the Kentucky Jockey Club, the latest prep season race on the road to the Kentucky Derby that was held right here beneath the Twin Spires on Saturday evening, where Honor Marie and a new face to the road to the Kentucky Derby, trainer Whit Beckman, but not necessarily a new face, and we'll talk about that a little bit too, as his trainee, Honor Marie, swept clear late down the lane to win the Kentucky Jockey Club by 2 lengths, earning 10 points on the road to the Kentucky Derby. I'm Kevin Kirstein, joined alongside Darren Rogers, another thrilling edition of the Kentucky Jockey Club, and Honor Marie got the job done Saturday night.
It was such a fun day. I love the 2-year-old racing. The fans around the country respond to the 2-year-old racing. And forgive me, the cough that I have been battling, it seems like all year has finally materialized into a genuine cold. And so my voice may crack from time. There it is. May crack from time to time. I apologize, but we are going to do this podcast nonetheless.
I need to find the ding button on this sound, right? Just to hit the ding every time you crack. Maybe we need to name a horse Darren's cough too.
Darren's cough. Let's hope this kind of puts it to an end.
Yeah.
But anyway, yesterday, an outstanding 12 race program at Churchill Downs, and the fans responded. $12.5 million was wagered. I mean, that's $1 million a race on average. So people love the babies, and, Honor Marie, congratulations to Ribble Farms. I love Whit Beckman's story. He's a graduate. And how good are these trainers, by the way, here in Louisville right now?
Yeah.
Everybody knows of, you have the old school, you have Dale Romans, Greg Foley. But you have, from Norm Cassie to Phil Bauer, add Whit Beckman to it. These are natives of Louisville, and Whit Beckman, he graduated from the private school here in the Ville, St. Xavier High School, and he served it as an assistant back in the days of when Super Saver won the 2010 Kentucky Derby. He was working with Todd Pletcher at the time. More recently, he worked with trainer Chad Brown before going out on his own. And what was it? 2020, 2021. He's only been around for a couple of years, but KK, you can speak to it. He has a ton of 2-year-olds.
Yeah, he has a lot of 2-year-olds, and I think it just speaks to how many of these owners respect the tutelage that Whit has experienced throughout his career. Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher are 2 very much top names that he has worked under, and Whit.
It's a great apprenticeship.
Yes. And Whit is such the most even-keeled trainer, I think, that we have on the backside. He's just calm, cool, and collected at all times. And I think you need that in horse racing. Like, horses respond to that. And, win, lose, or draw, there's a lot of hardships in horse racing. There's a lot of highs and lows. But Whit's sort of been even-keeled throughout it all. And he comes from a great family, too. A lot of horsemen in his family. His sister was here yesterday. I know she's got a veterinary practice. And, I've got a lot of respect for, his family. And it's great to see now Whit on the road to the Kentucky Derby with a horse like Honor Marie.
Well, we talked about it on the preview podcast about how, if a, kind of a, I don't know if it was a speed duel, but if a speed duel materialized, it was definitely a contested pace, and a weird race in a lot of ways.
It was a rodeo going into that first turn.
It was a rodeo in the first turn, but it was more of a rodeo nearing that half-mile pole. You want to go over each horse?
Yeah,
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Look, Honor Marie went off at 8-1. Nice value there, and ran the same race that, he did prior in that allowance contest against Otto the Conqueror. And I'm very high on Otto the Conqueror. And that race on October the 29th at Churchill Downs, that first level allowance going 7 furlongs really was flattering, because you had the runner-up, Honor Marie, come back and win the Kentucky Jockey Club, and third place finisher Just Steele won the Ed Brown. So that's a very productive race. Honor Marie, I'm just laughing at how I hit the high pitch. I feel like I'm a teenager again, Bobby Brady with the voice cracking. But Honor Marie, kind of fell out of the gate, let everyone go into that first turn, was very relaxed, got an inside trip all the way through the final turn, and then he tipped out 6 wide and collared stretch ride at the 3/16 pole. I thought it was a very professional win as he drew away. He, I think, was much the best because he lost a lot of ground going 6 wide into the turn and down the lane. But as opposed to the runner-up, Real Men Violin, who was ground saving most of the way.
I think the top two had the perfect trips within this race, right?
They did.
So Real Men Violin saved all the ground, and Anna Marie, even though he went wide or, nearing the quarter pole, he sort of got the best trip of seeing the speed duel and then the pace backing down abruptly on the backside work out perfectly for him, because he wasn't sort of up in that, second flight of horses that really, encountered some trouble right around the 5/8 pole. He was able to. I think
we just got to talk about that right off the bat. So you have right out of the gate, you've got, what was it? You had Awesome Road.
And then
he had to take back. Yeah, he took back. Who was it? It was
you had Nomos, who was
we had Nomos on the inside trying turf for the first time,
and then the head case.
And then you had who was between horses.
It was one red. You had Stretch Ride between.
That's it. Stretch Ride
and the long shot, one red cent.
Yes. Okay. And that. Thank you, because I'm sitting there going nuts. Wait, who the heck was between horses? So. Yeah, they went 3 wide all the way into nearing the half-mile pole, and they went the first quarter in 23-3. And it's not like they went the half mile in 48-2. So it's not like they really slowed it down, but they raced 3 wide, nearing that half-mile pole, and you could see the other horses, from Risk It, who had to check repeatedly, from Awesome Road, who went in on the inside. They really came together as a pack nearing the track kitchen.
Yeah.
And I kept looking at it at the time over and over again. So it didn't look like they slowed it down that much, but those horses clearly did, because they pulled themselves into one big pack.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they were really, the riders in that second pack maybe weren't as prepared of them to back it down, and it was only, 2 or 3/5 of a second, slower that they backed it down. But you could see visually, Luis Saez on Nomos and Martin Schwann on Stretch Ride, sort of really start to back it down. And then One Red Set and Gerardo Corrales, were sort of in a tough spot, because I think he was basically done at that half-mile pole. And that's when you had Risk It and leading rider Tyler Gaffalione, who sort of had nowhere to go from there, because he was really sort of almost out of it by that time, and Tyler was forced to go sort of inside of him. And you're right. So the time may not look at it, but it just almost looked like they were expecting that first flight to keep going, and they really didn't.
Yeah. Going back to the runner-up, Real Men Violin, I thought he broke well. He let those others go, and then he raced on the rail, and he was one of those that, dragged into the leaders nearing that half-mile pole. He dragged his way all the way into third. He ended up going 3 wide at that point. And then he was kind of stuck behind Nomos. But I thought, he darted to the rail, leaving the turn. Very professional move. I thought it was a nice effort, ground-saving effort. Like you said, he got a perfect trip. So that was the ideal scenario for Real Men Violin. Look, if I'm buying or selling stock, I'm holding.
Yes, it's a great point. I think he's definitely a hold when he comes down this winter. I would buy third place finisher Stretch Ride, though, who was a complete nutcase in the paddock. He, he got saddled, and then when he was walking around the walking ring, he actually, I don't know if he saw something or what, but he was trying to back out all the way to the racetrack through the walkway in the paddock, and he was not having it. They finally, Greg Blasi, the outrider, went and got him, and he brought him back into the paddock. And so for this horse to not only contest this pace between horses into the first turn on the backside, and then sort of hang in there to finish third, he was not really respected in his first 2 starts when he broke his maiden and won that first level allowance. I think he's going to gain a lot of experience from what he did in this race, both, his antics in the paddock and, the trip that he received on the racetrack, because it wasn't, necessarily a wire to wire trip. He was between horses and got some seasoning. So I think he can move forward off of this race.
I think that's an excellent point, Kevin, because that would explain the lather on his neck. You'll notice it. It was a cool day here in Louisville. There's no reason to have it. So he might have kind of run his race before the race had even been run. You're right. He was committed to the lead. He was in front at the top of the stretch, 2 wide. He was outrun though. And, but the antics pre-race might explain why he was outrun.
Yeah. And I don't think
I'd hold.
Yeah. It wasn't as easy of a scenario, I think, as his last 2 starts. What about Risk It?
Ooh, he went 3 wide into the turn. And then he kind of took back 2 wide behind that trio of leaders. And as we said, when they were nearing the half-mile pole, he had to check repeatedly. And when I say repeatedly, I mean, what do you think, KK?
I mean, Gaffalion was standing up in the saddle.
Standing up in the saddle for, I'm not going to go as far as a 16th of a mile, but it was pretty darn close.
Yeah, it felt like much longer than it probably was.
Then he was able to, once they got to the turn, he kind of went 5 wide, and he kept on. He was outrun, but he kept on. And so with all the checking, I'd hold. I'm not going to sell Risk It just yet, but he's got to get better.
Yeah, I do agree. He needs to get better. He comes out of that Iroquois before this race where he was, the closest to that torrid pace. And so I was really trying to, get a grasp on, if he was legitimate enough from that Iroquois. And I don't think you may have gotten it from this race just because of all the starting and stopping he had to do. Awesome Road. I feel like he's one of those horses that's probably, as Brad Cox referred to it, as his different batch of 2-year-olds that he has coming into this barn. He's probably not in the top 4 or 5, I would say. I was really expecting him to run a much better race than he did, going off as a favorite in this race. I know he encountered trouble, but I was just, he was just sort of blah to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you and the people that bet him down to 8-5 favoritism were disappointed. He was away just okay. Was kind of outfooted early, and he had to take back into the first turn. He ended up being 4 wide, about a length off the lead at the half, and he loomed in the turn. And I don't know if he was able to poke his nose in front at the top of the lane, but he just came up empty. I mean, this reeks of turn back to me. So, I buy, sell, hold. I'm selling.
Yeah. I agree with that point. Dancing Groom, who came in from Florida via New York last time. He just didn't seem to handle things well as 8-1 in here. I liked him going into the race thinking that he would do better at this 2-turn distance, and he just sort of didn't pick up his feet.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because I have a note here. He was away just okay. He went 3 wide into that first turn, and down the first turn, it looked like he was just spinning his wheels.
Yeah.
Spinning his wheels like maybe he didn't like the track. He was 4 wide at the half-mile pole. You could see Castellano was pumping his hands through most of the race. And then he was never involved.
No.
Sell.
Yeah, he's a sell. And then I think the last 2-place finishers, One Red Cent, the long shot who contested the pace, probably doesn't maybe belong with this type of competition yet. He was 71-1, got beaten 18 3/4 lengths. And then Nomos, who finished last for Todd Pletcher trying the dirt. I think he's going to go back to the turf, I would assume.
Yeah, I would. At least back to the drawing board with Nomos, who just, look, he wanted the lead to avoid the cutback, in my opinion. And, he was on the inside and retreated, leaving the turn. They're going back to the drawing board. One thing about One Red Set, though, cut back and softer. He broke from post position 8, and he was last of 8. He charged to the front. He was committed to that lead 3 wide. He left the turn. He didn't spit it the half-mile pole. He left the turn in the fray with the blinkers on. But, when he hit the 3/16 pole, I think the 3/16 pole hit him in the head like a 2x4, and he retreated very quickly. With a cutback, this horse will be long odds, but he's not. I wouldn't throw him out in a shorter race off of that awful effort.
This is Darren's twinspires.com stable mail for maybe look at next race. So
well, it's gotta be, like I said, it's gotta be cut back, and it's gotta be a lot softer competition. But, the poor effort on paper, and he was 72-1. He'll get overlooked in his next start.
That was the Kentucky Jockey Club in a nutshell. Anna Marie earned a 96 Brisnet speed rating. To put it in perspective, in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fierceness earned a 112. Just comparing those two at this stage, Anna Marie sounds like he's going to go, as I keep wanting to say she, as we did on the preview because of the name. Anna Marie, he will likely go down to Fairgrounds where Whit Beckman has stalls for the first time this season, and we'll likely to see him on the road to the Kentucky Derby down at that great series at Fairgrounds this winter.
Yeah, I don't know if we saw the Derby winner.
Yeah,
we have to keep it real. But these horses can progress as the races go on, and I thought, there were some professional performances. Some need to get better. What about the undercard, KK?
Yeah, let's talk Just Deal for a minute. So for Wayne Lucas, who won the Ed Brown, and, I was so high on Booth coming into this race as, he was bet down to such big favoritism off of his maiden win, and he just didn't run well at all. And Just Deal, ran the exact opposite. He ran great in this race to close from just off the pace for Wayne Lucas. His grandson Brady and his great children were in the winner's circle. It's great to see this connection of this horse. And Wayne looked at me after the race. He said, "This is a Kentucky Derby type of horse." And so,
he'll be going back to 2 turns when he gets down to Oaklawn. Yeah, hats off to the coach. 88 years old, he could still train. Just Deal's one of those horses that we've talked about it on this podcast before. Be forgiving from time to time. Be forgiving. This is a son of Justify, who, he was breaking from post 6 of 8, and he broke out, and he kind of squeezed Devieto right at the start, and made a little contact with the 3-5 favorite Booth. He tracked, that contested pace 5 wide at the top of the lane, swung out, and I thought he really powered home inside the final 1/8 of a mile. And the coach thinks, the way he lengthened his stride inside that final furlong, he has no question about going back to 2 turns, and that's where you'll see him down at Oaklawn. But yeah, he paid $27.08 for a $2 win bet.
Yeah, and don't be surprised if you see second place finisher Agu, also trained by Whit Beckman. This is a horse that, he may not be good enough, but I wouldn't be surprised if you can see him in some stakes races down in the future. So it's good to see Whit with another one of those 2-year-olds. And going back to Just Deal for a second with Wayne Lucas, Wayne said after the race, he said, "I love the Justifies," and he's already talking about how he has more coming into his barn that he just bought at the sale. So 88 years old, he ain't done yet, and he's got more coming on the way. So
no, the Justifies are running left and right now.
Yeah.
Just Deal was one of 3 horses that won on the 3 colts that won on Stars of Tomorrow that they gave $500,000 for the sales. Another one was Track Phantom, who broke his maiden going 1 1/16 for Steve Asmussen. It's a son of Quality Road. The dam is Miss Sunset. Miss Sunset is by Into Mischief. You might remember her. She won the Raven Run and 8 other stakes. Very nice win by Track Phantom. Broke well, went right to the front. Was outside of the bolting with Stuckey, who was, an 18-1 shot into the first turn, but, he was never really pressured. Surf City came within a half length on the turn, but Track Phantom rolled at the 3/16 pole, and he was geared down late. I think this is a horse worth looking at because you might remember that in his previous start, he was beaten by Real Men Violin, who ran second in the Kentucky Jockey Club. So Track Phantom could be in that mix with those same types of horses.
Yeah, we know that Steve Asmussen will end up with him on a spot on the road to the Kentucky Derby come this wintertime. Where that might be, who knows, because Steve is game to run pretty much anywhere, but he's definitely one that I wouldn't be surprised next time out he's on the road.
The other $500,000 purchase that really impressed me was Legalize, who broke his maiden going 7 furlongs. I thought this was one of the better performances on the day. Went right to the front, gate to wire, under Louis Saez. Cherie DeVoe trains the Son of Constitution. It's out of an Unbridled Song mare. I thought this was a nice win over El Magnifico and Linebacker as those two chased. It's kind of a merry-go-round race, but I thought it was very impressive. I thought it was fast.
Yeah, I think even though it was merry-go-round, the key word there was fast, and figures came back fast on this horse. And I think those were probably the 4 horses that we mentioned, with going back to the Jockey Club, the Ed Brown, and these two were the 4 I'd keep an eye on towards the road to the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, and I'm just going to take a hat off to, I don't think it's a road to the Derby horse necessarily, but Houday for Tommy Drury Jr. This is a half to Everett Song, who won the Harrods Creek at Churchill Downs not too long ago. 4 for 4 for the Ohio bred. Got a victory in a first level allowance at 1 mile. Liam's Map on the top. I have no problem going 2 turns, but it's an Indian Charlie mare on the bottom that suggests, that mile distance, maybe a mile and 16th might be the limits, but 4 for 4 under John McKee and Tommy Drury and Maccabee Farm.
Let's get Johnny McKee back in the Derby.
Right?
That'd be great. Some old school there for Derby 150, but this horse does need to get faster. But, kudos for everything that you just said right there.
KK, what'd you think about the fillies? Intricate was a very impressive winner of the Goldenrod for Brendan Walsh under Tyler Gaffalione. Gaffalione, won 4 of the 12 races on the Stars of Tomorrow program. Intricate is, a daughter of Gunrunner out of a distorted humor mare. Torpedo Anna, probably bounced after that very fast effort and wheeling back pretty quick, but Intricate, professional, won by 5+ lengths. And I thought that was a very handy win.
Yeah. Sort of figuring things out, just like her stablemate Pretty Mischievous did last year at this time. And so great to see, Brendan Walsh, the reigning Kentucky Oaks winning trainer, come back again in this race. And she'll be on the road to the Kentucky Oaks down at Fairgrounds after this performance. I think Torpedo Anna is a very nice filly, but that was her 3rd start in 5 weeks. To see her run the way that she did and hang on for as long as she did, I thought that was impressive too. But maybe she'll just get a little bit of a break next time and come back fresh. And I'm willing to give her another shot on the road to the Kentucky Oaks.
Just a couple other horses worth noting. You Almost Had Me was a nice winner for Brad Cox of the Fern Creek. That was sprinting 6.5 furlongs. You don't see many Daughters of Oxbow, but sprinting nonetheless. But she's been very good, winning 4 of 6 starts, nearly $500,000 in her career. That was a professional win coming along the inside rail from the back of the pack. And Brad also had another one, Denim and Pearls, a foal to Newgate. We mentioned this on the show last week, that this is a daughter of Into Mischief. It was the other Brad in the race. And then the 3rd place finisher, keep an eye on, Wee Bit of Mischief for Dale Romans. This thing finished a roaring 3rd from the back of the pack. But those were some horses I think worth watching on the road to the Kentucky Oaks.
Absolutely. A fun Stars of Tomorrow 2 card on Saturday at Churchill Downs. The action will continue hot and heavy on the road to the Kentucky Derby throughout the month of December. And we're 160-ish days away for the first Saturday in May, and we're counting down very quickly here beneath the Twin Spires.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us 5 stars and subscribe for our 4-star performance. And KK, do you know what the best thing for a hoarse voice and someone who has a cough? Woodford Reserve.
With 200 flavor notes in every sip, probably a few more if you add some honey to soothe your throat. Man, is that a spectacle for the senses.
I will be consuming plenty as we try to get this cough, this voice on the mend. I believe we'll be back next week with a preview of the Remsen. That'll be probably Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening-ish. And then we'll be kind of off to the farm for the holidays.
Exactly. But we'll make it big and better next week for the Talking the Remsen. We'll talk Mage's little brother, Dornock, who's expected to be the headliner in that race. So it'll be a fun rendition of the Remsen. And
Dutro's got one too. Where's Chris?
Yeah, where's Chris on the Kentucky Derby Future Wager? He's very intriguing as well. So we'll talk about all that and more.
I know Chad's got one too.
Oh man,
it'll be a good race.
Your buddy Chad. It'll be a fun show next week. We'll make sure you like and subscribe so you can get those automatic updates right to your favorite podcast app to when that show goes live. Until then, I'm going to hit a deposit button on my Twin Spires because I lost it all yesterday on Stars of Tomorrow too. But don't fear, lots of great promotions on there too to get some of that money back and get ready for Derby 150. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk soon.